after this whole explanation, looked at me and she said, I think you just saved my life. So this is education equals empowerment. Now,
Wow.
when we go to our doctors, unfortunately, sometimes we think that they're going to be able to direct us down the right path. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So one of my, missions is to provide education. So you can go back to your physicians and say, I think maybe we forgot this, or I'd like this test. I understand it's standard of care. I need this test. If you're not willing to do it, please mark that in my chart. And the woman, I want to remind everyone that you're employing the doctor, not the other way around.
Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. Thank you so much for investing your time and your energy into tuning in to today's episode. I'm super excited for today's guest. We have Carol Lourie. She is a naturopath, acupuncturist, and homeopath with over 40 years of clinical experience. Carol, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored and excited to be here with you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So I have a signature question that I love to ask everyone. Some people answer it in like a practical way. Some people love to get philosophical. So whatever floats your boat, the question I love is who are you and who are you not?
Hmm. Uh, I'm a dynamic person who is very interested and invested in my personal life. And I'm also very interested and invested in the women in my community, those who have breast cancer, have recently been diagnosed, or in the middle of treatment, or have finished treatment and are suffering from tamoxifen and AI. It's all about empowering women to be able to take back their life and live a life of their dreams, to the best of their ability. Who am I not? I'm not lazy. Uh, I am not lazy. I guess that's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Like, really invested in making this the best life for me and also for my community.
Yes, absolutely. And taking on a mission. I mean, it's a powerful intention. It's a powerful mission to stand up for women who are recovering from breast cancer. And that's not a lazy mission. That requires you to be ambitious and focused and I love this. I already know I'm going to love this conversation because I love what you stand for already. So before we get into, the the foundation of our topic, I want to talk a little bit about your background. How did you get into naturopathic medicine? What led you into that at first?
Well, I had originally wanted to be a regular medical doctor and go to allopathic medical school. And then found myself living in New York, and one of my roommates had cancer. And this was in the 70s, so I was much younger than I am now. And I went with her to her final oncology appointment where her oncologist said, You've done an enormous amount of radiation. There's nothing more we can do for you. And the underlying message was basically, you don't have long to live. And she looked at me and she started crying. And I said, that doesn't have to be your reality. We can get this better. She said, I'm only 26. I don't want to die. So this was in the late 70s. Not only was there no internet, there were no computers yet. So, I mean, that's a whole nother lifetime ago. So, when you think about how do you do research, it's through the yellow pages, it's through word of mouth, it's through making one call after another. And she finally found a physician practitioner who used iridology, which is looking in the iris of the eye, to diagnose disease. And we went to see him. He worked out of his home in Lido Beach, New York, and his waiting room was his living room. And I started going with her to every appointment, and it was a whole nother experience of healing and healthcare. I mean, he looked in people's eyes, he wrote notes, he gave them these detoxifying diets with salads and juices and vegetables. It was a trip. She started doing it. I started doing it. She started spitting up this weird color phlegm from her chemotherapy, and she had it analyzed, and it had elements in it from radiation. And I started detoxifying with it too. And the word detox then was not a household word like it is now. And I realized as I began to detoxify and feel, I began to feel better. And I realized how not great I had felt before. And then I started working in his office. And there were three types of people who he was treating. One were people who had not been helped by standard medicine. Two were people who had been harmed from standard medicine. And three were people who had cancer. Everyone who came in, I saw their transformation and how a month after month they came in monthly. They were losing weight. Their energy was better. This one woman had horrible skin, and in 2 months it cleared up. And I was thinking, why doesn't she just take antibiotics? And obviously, I was mistaken in that thought process. And then one day I was going through this big pile of papers, and all of a sudden I found the catalog to the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And that is a long-winded way of saying that that was my destiny in that minute, in that second, to pick up an old piece of paper and there was the catalog. And I knew in that second that that was the next step in my journey to gather this intellectual knowledge so I could help people heal.
Wow. And so it sounds like you had clarity earlier in your life because some of us feel like we don't get clarity on what we're doing until later. Would you say that was early in your 20s? Did it sound like that was
Yes, yeah,
20s?
I
Okay.
always knew I wanted to sort of help people, and I guess I figured I wanted to be a doctor. So, in some ways, I was disappointed that I didn't go to regular medical school, but I feel like that was in the past. And now I know that I ended up exactly where I needed to be for my life.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say, and you can tell me your opinion, that naturopathic medicine and the natural remedies of healing those diseases in the body are a lot more popular, a lot more accepted. There's a lot more longevity with those types of treatments, would you say now than there was before?
I think naturopathic medicine and integrative medicine is more established and well known. In the world of medical oncology, medical oncologists, many of them poo-poo evidence-based strategies. So
Hmm.
I think that there is a lot of catch-up that needs to happen. And I'm talking about, when I say evidence-based, I'm talking about PubMed research that shows when you use intermittent fasting before chemotherapy, you have a better outcome because the cancer cells take up more of the drugs and the healthy cells are protected. This has been well proven and documented in medical research. And a woman in my group just told me yesterday that her oncologist would like look up at the ceiling and say, well, I don't know, but go right ahead. I mean, there's no need for that. It is evidence-based. There's very respected research. So I'm an integrative practitioner. I'm not one of
Hmm.
these practitioners who say don't do medical treatment. That's not who I am.
Right. Beautiful, beautiful. And what is the difference between treating disease and healing the whole person?
Well, there's a big difference. Um, there is acute management of an acute disease. For example, if you have a cold, if you break your arm or leg, if you fall, and that's an acute management of a simple problem. Chronic disease is all metabolic, and that means that there are driving factors that contributed to that disease. It means that it didn't happen overnight. It means that your body gave off a lot of messages for quite a while before all of a sudden you were diagnosed with whatever it is. And chronic disease is not just cancer, it's also diabetes, it's cardiovascular disease, it's insulin resistance, it's gut problems like colitis and Crohn's disease, it's migraine headaches, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's infertility. All of those are chronic diseases. There's multiple contributing factors that have happened over an extended period of time that ended up creating that diagnosis. Cancer is one of those, but not the only one.
Yeah, very powerful, very powerful. And so what is a big part of your work right now in addition to, helping heal the whole person, integrating both the Western medical and holistic practices?
I think it's helping my community as women, but people understand that the messaging that we have gotten as Americans, well, you have disease A, you take pill B, or you don't need to really do lifestyle changes. That's getting better. But when you look at what's advertised on television, it's always pharmaceutical. You have disease A, you take drug B, and all of a sudden the woman's serving the family a picnic lunch. That's an advertisement for an antidepressant, by the way. Um, so there's that advertisement drives me crazy because it doesn't talk about what made the woman not feel well and why should the woman then be serving the picnic lunch? Where is the other people in the family helping take care of her? But so I think it's about understanding the messaging that we have in our brains about how we need to take care of ourselves and that we need to stack protocols and discover what we need to do. For example, if you're starting your day with a scone or donut and a frappy sugary drink, that is not going to provide you with the energy that your cells need for long-term health. It creates inflammation, and then your energy drops after a couple hours, and you go for another coffee. So, how are you feeding your body? Like if you put bad gas in your car, it's going to stop running. So, it's the same thing with how you nurture your body. And if you leave your car in the garage all the time and never start it out after a couple months, it doesn't kick over. If you're not moving your body in a way that improves exercise and longevity, you are going to end up with ripple effects. Now, this has been well proven. There's something called the blue zones. They have done lots of studies about this all over the world. And there's specific items in the lifestyle of these blue zones that coordinate no matter where the zone is throughout the world.
Powerful. And for those who don't know, that was a great description of the blue zones. I'm just now learning about it as myself as well. Um, where does this come from? Where did this
Well,
originate?
um, there is one big researcher whose name escapes me, but it's been known for many, many years. There's one in Greece, there's one in South America, there's one in Europe someplace. And what the definition of a blue zone is, it's a culture that has not been Americanized or Westernized, and they're maintaining every aspect of the lifestyle from food to walking, to living, to community, to culture that fits where they live. So, a blue zone in the hills of Greece, they it's notice the word hills. I mean, they have images of 95-year-old people walking up these very steep hills. And then they sit around and they talk to their elders and they are served a meal together and there's community and then they walk down the hill and they have community helping take care of them and the food is indigenous and very local and healthy to where they live. Now, there is a study in one of the cultures, I think it was in South America, where Western culture with processed food has come in so
Mm.
that this one family, the parents were eating indigenous food, but the child was sitting in the interview eating a bag of chips and was not interested in indigenous food. And the parents both said this is the beginning of the end. So um, that's very dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, lifestyle is so important. We cannot emphasize it enough. And I think in our modern culture, I think we get stuck in this mindset of, oh, it's just for today. Oh, I'll start exercising tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do this another day. Or I'll start on January 1st. Or, we kind of prolong or delay what we know our body needs, and then it ends up being this lifestyle. We end up in this lifestyle of just not having the vegetables or the salads or the fresh foods or being outside or getting exercise. So it's really important to prioritize those things. What are some other challenges that you find that people really need to know about, women need to know about so that they can keep their bodies healthy, uh, prevent breast cancer, especially for those like I'm in a family where it runs in my lineage, with
Right.
on my mom's side.
Mhm.
So what besides the healthy, besides lifestyle, exercising and eating well, what are some other tools and tips or even challenges that we might have either way?
So that's a really great topic. I'm really happy you brought that up. If you have a first or second line female family member who's had breast cancer, that means your mom, your aunt, a cousin. First of all, I think it's important for the person who had breast cancer to be genetically screened, and that will be covered by her insurance. Now, if she comes up with the genetic carrier of the BRCA1 or 2 gene, that means certain protections against getting breast cancer have been removed, and she and her possibly relatives have a higher risk of getting breast cancer. So, hypothetically, your mother had breast cancer. She needs to be tested. And if she wasn't, she needs to go back to her oncology team and say, hey, I think you forgot this. I want a comprehensive Invitae or Ambry genetic panel for breast cancer genetic screening. It will be covered by insurance. Depending on what her outcome is, then if she is positive, then you need to get tested because
Hmm.
you have a greater likelihood of having that carrier gene. Now, this puts you in another category. What happens is a couple things. Um, you need to have a higher level of screening than women who do not carry the gene. That means diagnostic mammograms and ultrasound. Now, there are different ways of being screened. There's something called the QT scan, which does not involve the small amount of radiation that comes from mammograms. And the issue with that is this: there's only a few of them within the country, number one. And number two, it's not covered by insurance, so it's between $500 and $600. And number three, if you find something on that test and you take it to your breast surgeon, they're going to say, well, this is very nice, but I don't know what to do with this because it's not in my standard of care protocol. You still need a mammogram and an ultrasound. So I just want women to be aware of that. Now, let's say something does come up. That's when it's time to bring in something like me right away. Because if you're going to have a biopsy, there's certain types of biopsies you want to have. You can prepare your body for a biopsy as well as your mind. And if nothing is showing up, also, it's a good idea to have a consult with someone such as myself, because then what I will do with you is provide you certain diagnostic tests that are important for you to know about, such as the Dutch hormonal panel. That what happens with that is when you go to a regular gynecologist and they run your comprehensive serum, blood, hormonal panel, it gives you a snapshot of what's happening with your hormones in that minute. But the issue with breast cancer is the way your estrogen is metabolized and what form it ends up in your body and how much. That is one of the contributing factors of breast cancer. So the Dutch hormonal panel is a urine and saliva test, and it gives you a very comprehensive report with graphs about how your estrogen is being metabolized. With that information, if more of the unhealthy estrone estrogen is being metabolized, that means that your liver needs support. And there's naturopathic and integrative strategies that we can use to help you increase your liver metabolism, such as detoxifying factors, making sure you're getting enough leafy green vegetables. Are you filtering your water? What's happening in your diet? I always start with foundational foods. Are you getting enough organic leafy green vegetables? How are you moving your body? And this is really important. Do you have Glade plugins in your home? And are you using Febreze on your sofa? Because those types of exogenous odors, fragrances, have an enormous amount of estrogen disruptors in them. So if you're using those and you use dryer sheets and standard laundry detergent, you are making it very difficult for your body to healthily metabolize your hormones.
Wow. Okay, I don't do the Febreze. And I know this is it for everyone, not just me, but I don't do the plugins, the Glade or the Febreze, but I do dryer sheets. It's the seventh generation. I don't know if that's any
Oh,
better
seventh
than.
generation is better.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's just branding and they want us to think it's organic, but thank you
But
for that
why? I mean, why
confirmation.
are we using dryer sheets? I mean, we're spending money. Why do we need a dryer
That's a
sheet?
great question. And what about when you said estrogen disruptor? What about chlorine? And then are there some other ones that you might want to mention?
Well, chlorine we get from swimming. Now, I think it's really important to go. I think swimming is a wonderful form of exercise because it's non-impactful and it really does cardiovascularly and it builds muscle. But you are exposed to chlorine, and chlorine is definitely an estrogen disruptor. So, what needs to
Yep.
happen when you get out of that pool? Most people do not have the luxury of having their own saltwater pool. Um, that you need to have Dr. Bronner's liquid soap in your bag with a loofah brush, and you put that on and you really loofah it up. And then you have to really wash your bathing suit. So, and you wear a shower cap and you have to wash your hair. This is why, if you ask, I think people need to have two forms of exercise that they like to alternate between. If you
Hmm.
ask me to go swimming because of this description with the loofah and the changing and the hair, never happening. And the same with a bike. It hurts my rear end too much. But I find power walking and I go up these killer hills and lifting weights, those are my two forms. So I think part of developing healthy habits is finding two forms of exercise, one in the nice weather and one in the not nice weather, that you actually enjoy. Because if you tell people to do things that they don't like, they're not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for the chlorine perspective. Are there any other estrogen disruptors we should know about, like tofu? Was that a myth? Is
Oh,
that
that's a
real?
myth. Okay,
Okay.
let's talk about tofu and soy. There's this thing about phytoestrogens, and they do the same thing as they increase estrogen. It's not just what happens with the amount of estrogen, it's how the estrogen sits on the breast cell receptor. So let's take soy and tofu and soy sauce as an example. When you look at the Japanese culture before it became westernized, so I'm talking about the mid 1800s, the late 1700s to there were no Caucasian people in there. It was this isolated island. It had barely been discovered. As it became more wet, and they had almost no breast cancer. What their diet was a soy-based diet. They ate tofu, they ate fish from the sea, they grew their own vegetables. It was an indigenous zone. They walked, they everybody knew each other. It was sort of like its own blue zone. Really. That community, very small island, everyone knew each other. They became industrialized and they stopped having indigenous culture and food, and their breast cancer rate soared. And you can do longevity studies. This is science. So they lost their indigenous culture. They stopped eating healthy soy, and they got ill. So soy, organic soy is not carcinogenic. What they've done with the soy is they've turned it into a GMO product, and that has made it unhealthy. They fry it and they put it in soy snacks and unhealthy cookies that have saturated fat in it. And now everybody's saying you can't have soy. Now, I'm not saying you should eat 5 ounces of soy 7 days a week. But if you want to have 2 ounces, 2 4 ounce servings a week, that is not going to increase your risk or your recurrence rate of getting breast cancer. It's a normal food process. It doesn't have enough phytoestrogens, and phytoestrogens are healthy estrogens. They're not necessarily carcinogenic.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful information. Thank you for busting that myth.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just last week I was at a Chinese restaurant and I wanted to get miso soup and I didn't get it because of the tofu. I should
Well,
have just got it.
the miso soup at a Chinese restaurant is probably not organic.
Okay, right,
So
right,
the
right.
key phrase here is organic, and the only way
Organic.
you'll have control over that is if you go to your local health food store and you buy one
Right.
of these square things and it says organic, non-GMO tofu.
Yeah,
I
got
would
it.
guarantee that normal health, Chinese restaurants do not spend the extra money and buy organic tofu.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, great stuff. So much good information. I feel like I'm learning so much already. I would love to hear like any client experiences or anyone that you've been assisting that would be great to hear about.
So a woman came into my free class last night, and she was on tamoxifen. Now, tamoxifen, for those of you who don't know what that is a selective estrogen response modifier. And when a woman has had hormone positive breast cancer and she finishes active treatment, meaning chemo, radiation, potential surgery, she's put on what is known as hormone blocking therapy. And that is either tamoxifen or an aromatase inhibitor. And they work a little differently. The thing about tamoxifen is it's anti-estrogenic on the breast, but it is pro-estrogenic on the uterus and the endometrial lining, which means there's a higher risk of getting endometrial or uterine cancer. So, two things need to happen. One is ideally the oncologist will run what is known as CYP2D6 enzyme test. Most doctors will not do that. And that is the enzyme that breaks down tamoxifen from the inactive to the active form. If you're deficient in that enzyme, you're not going to do well on tamoxifen, and the byproduct builds up and can lead to more cancer. There's an easy solution for that. It's called a Vista. It works very similarly to tamoxifen, but it doesn't need that enzyme to be broken down. But what needs to happen for women who are taking tamoxifen is every 6 months they need a vaginal ultrasound. And this woman did not get that. So, and these side effects can happen years after she stopped. So she was on tamoxifen for 7 years. The other error that happened clinically is that at year 5, and this is very important for women to know, the oncology team needs to be doing what is known as a breast cancer index test. A sample from the pathology department is sent to this lab. This is a CLIA certified lab. Nothing here is touchy-feely. It's all standard of care. And they look at the sample and they give a DNA statistical report of what is the benefit for remaining on this drug, whether it's tamoxifen or an aromatase inhibitor, for more than 5 years. She didn't have that done. She stayed on tamoxifen for 7 years. And then they discovered that she had thickening of her uterine lining. So the first time they discovered that, she had a DNC. Um, that was mistake number 3. They should have done an endometrial biopsy at that point, and then it built up again. So her doctor has said that she wants to do an immediate his total complete hysterectomy. And the woman said, well, I'd rather have another DNC. And the doctor said, okay. So she came into the class and asked me about this. Now, this was in a live group coaching program. I hadn't seen any of her pathology report, but just from what she told me, I said to her, first of all, you should have had an endometrial biopsy time number 1 because of your history. And second of all, even though you requested another DNC, your doctor should have said that's not appropriate. We need to do an endometrial biopsy now before we do hysterectomy or DNC to see if there's cancer, because if there is cancer, then there needs to be other surgical preparations. So after this whole explanation, looked at me and she said, I think you just saved my life.
Wow.
So this is education equals empowerment. Now,
Wow.
when we go to our doctors, unfortunately, sometimes we think that they're going to be able to direct us down the right path. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So one of my, missions is to provide education. So you can go back to your physicians and say, I think maybe we forgot this, or I'd like this test. I understand it's standard of care. I need this test. If you're not willing to do it, please mark that in my chart. And the woman, I want to remind everyone that you're employing the doctor, not the other way around. If they're disrespectful, if you're dismissed, if they're rude, if they don't listen to you, you have the right to find somebody who will. Never settle for not great treatment.
Yeah. What a powerful example on how much clarity she was able to give, or excuse me, she was able to receive from you. And yeah, just that one piece of clarity, just that one perspective, probably did save her life. And so that's remarkable. Thanks for sharing that piece.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And so, what are some other things for women to just be aware of? Not out of fear, not out of panic, but are there anything is there anything else that we should be aware of as women?
First of all, I'm not into fear and panic as a motivator for getting your life better. That's not because that wears off.
Right.
Um, I think we need to become aware of the messaging that we've received from for many, many years and how it's in our brains and our cells, which is sort of like you don't really need to do anything different and you'll wait until something happens and you don't have any choice or you don't have any say in what happens. Like you don't have any say in whether you end up in a wheelchair in your 90s. Um, and my daughter said to me, Mom, I don't want you to end up in a wheelchair like Granny, who is my mom. And I said, guess what? I'm not going to. And that was my motivating thing. And I do like to exercise, but I started to go on my power walks like really religiously at that point. And when I first started, this is one of the things you need to hear. I have this killer hill right outside of my house. I walked up this hill for 5 minutes and I went, oh, I'm done. And I turned around and came back. And then two things could have happened. I could have said, it's hopeless, forget it. I'm just not going to be able to manage this. Or I said, okay, you knew you were out of shape. Now you really know how out of shape you are. And tomorrow you're going to do 6 minutes. So now I can go up this killer hill. I can do 4 miles. And so when you first start to exercise, you don't want to start working with somebody who is young and 25 and lifts 75 pounds. You need to go to a class for people who are not in shape yet. And you need to slow down and realize, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. And it takes more than twice a week. So I
Mhm.
exercise 4 to 6 times a week and I like it. I put it into my schedule. I find time an hour every day. It's either power walking or weightlifting. I put on some nice music and it's a way that I take care of myself. And I do it whether I think I want to do it or not, because I know at the end of that, I feel really well. So overcoming hidden messages that we get from the time we're very little, from American advertising, from magazines, from what's out there on social media. I mean, there's two types of people on social media. The young ones who are telling you to lift weights and get in shape, and then the older ones who maybe they do, maybe they don't. But there are the Facebook group for people who are older who just started exercising. So find a community that matches your age group. There's lots of free stuff on YouTube. Find someone that you like because, if you're on YouTube and you find somebody who has everybody going a mile a minute in their exercise class and you're not there yet, find somebody for beginners. But don't give up the search and don't give up on yourself.
Yes, so powerful. I love that message. Just start where you are. Find people who are, on a similar journey. That is so powerful. We talked a lot about the physical so far, and it was great. As far as emotional recovery, emotional healing from challenges, difficulties, traumas, we all know there's no secret that the traditional Western medical system doesn't give much insight, awareness, or thought or consideration to our emotional well-being and how that actually plays into recovery from chronic disease, whether it's something else or cancer. Any thoughts on that? Is there anything that we need to be aware of? as we're integrating, you do integrative health. So as we're integrating the mind, body, spirit, yes, it's about the physical body. Yes, it's about working out and eating right. And then how do we care for ourselves emotionally and mentally to support that?
I think that that is a critical component of healing and recovery, that no matter what the chronic disease is, if that's not brought into the conversation, you, people don't get better. So it is important to find a practitioner who will support that and encourage that conversation for you. I think there is always an emotional driving factor of any chronic disease. And one time, a woman in my class, we were talking, doing the week on trauma recovery, and she said, well, I know why I got breast cancer. And I said, would you like to share it? Now, this is a closed group, it's very safe. And she said, when I was young, I was molested by my uncle. And he let me know that if I didn't let him do it to me, he was going to do it to my sister. So I said to her, well, you were very brave and you protected your sister. And that was a very healing moment for her to have somebody acknowledge what she sacrificed. And now, 25 years later, she had this disease in her chest. And it was also very liberating for her to share that. Now, it's not like you say something once and it resolves the trauma. And it's sort of like peeling away layers of your psyche to get to the core of what is really emotionally and traumatic that you had in your life. One time, a woman said to me, well, I've never had anything traumatic happen to me. And I went, okay, first of all, I don't think that's really possible. As adults, we've all had something. And I said to her, so if I substitute the words trauma for emotionally upsetting, have you had any experiences of those? And she said, oh, yeah. So she starts to
Yeah.
tell me thing after thing, event after event, which were actually really traumatic moments.
Mm,
And in order to cope, she had taken them out of the trauma category and put them into slightly emotionally upsetting.
I
So
see.
this is where I share the story of the frog in warm water. Now, this is a true story, and we don't do this anymore, but when I was in junior high in science class, that was a long time ago, they took the frog, they put it in warm water, they gradually increased the temperature until it boiled to death. Torture, but that's what we did then. Thank goodness they don't do that anymore. So this happens to women with breast cancer a lot. They're very smart, they're very accomplished, they want to take care of everyone else at the expense of taking care of themselves. And people say, will you do this for me? Will you do that for me? And they go, yes, yes, yes. And they're always running around busy doing things for other people and not for themselves. So, one of the messages of getting a diagnosis of breast cancer is, how do I need to change saying yes all the time to no, I'm not able to, and not say no, I'm sorry, I'm not able to, because you don't need to be sorry. People need to start helping you. And when you start changing your attitude, if people stop calling you or reaching out, like all of a, you were their friend because you were doing all this stuff for them, and all of a sudden they're not, friendship needs to be reciprocal on some level. That's an indication that they were not really your friend, because we friends want to help you. Do you need help? Can I drive you? Do you want me to come clean your laundry and change your bed linens? How can I help you? That's what needs to happen. Do you need a food? Tell me what you need me to make. Go shopping. There needs to be reciprocity in friendship.
Yes, yes, totally agree with the friendship. And I'm glad you also brought up the point of women, we can get in this habit of taking care of everyone else, making sure everyone else is good, whether you have kids or not. It's not just the motherhood dynamic, I think it's women, we're so giving, and yes, we can lack boundaries sometimes, and we're so compassionate. And that brings me to a more specific question for my audience, because I have a lot of listeners who are spiritual entrepreneurs, they have their own business. Maybe they're Reiki healers or psychics or coaches or emotional healers or all types. We can create any type of work that we want to these days, which is amazing. But I think in the pursuit of that, and I fell into this pretty heavily too, probably the first 4 years of starting my coaching business and healing business, is just sacrificing for the business or for, my family or for, again, just putting everyone's needs first. So as we start to wrap up this conversation, do you have any other insight on how women as a whole, whether you own your own business or not, whether you have kids or not, that's not the point. But how can we really just reframe our minds emotionally and come back to ourselves and really start to put ourselves first when it's appropriate?
I think it's very important to have boundaries, especially if you have your own business. I have a separate office phone number. I don't respond to emails after 6 p.m. Pacific time. And on the weekends, I don't respond unless it's an emergency. I'm let the women in my community know what my office hours are. Um, it may take me a day, and I say it may take me a day or two to respond. I can get almost 100 emails a day. That's a lot. I do have an assistant to help me. I feel like it's important to give people really attentive, good care, but not at the sacrifice of myself. There's really important boundaries. Like, I don't feel people should be working at 11 o'clock at night. That is an issue. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is smart, and there is some still subtle indication, oh, you're getting a mani-pedi, or oh, you're getting a massage, or oh, you're going away again. Oh, you're still doing that every week. I mean, yeah, it's not a still. In order to give and be successful, you need to be plugged in to your vital force, or else you don't have anything to give out. So, it's the more we take care of ourselves, the more we embody how and can help women, take care of themselves. And it's often one of the first questions I ask, how do you care for yourself? And you'd be surprised. A lot of people go, that's a good question. I never thought about that.
Yeah, yeah. I love the boundaries thing, and it's important for us to understand that people may not understand our self-care routine, but we don't need their permission. And it's so
Exactly.
funny that you gave those examples because I just told someone I went to the spa and they were like, "You go to the spa every week?" I'm like, "Yes, I
Yeah,
do."
I'm smart. I need to,
Hello.
yeah, I need to
Yeah,
plug in. Like I need
right.
to, I can't, I mean, I don't go every week. I go every other week, and I go to acupuncture one week, I go to chiropractor the other week, I go to the spa every other week.
Let's normalize
I
this.
mean, I
Yes.
think, and they go, oh, it's expensive. And I go, it's expensive? Feeling horrible. It's not, it's
And
self-care.
being ill.
Yeah,
Yes.
self-care. It's like really where it's at. I feel empowered. I have lots of positive energy. I can encourage women. And they go, oh, you have so much energy. I go, yeah, that's what happens when you take your supplements, you eat well, you power walk, you go to the spa, you go to the gym, you go for massage, acupuncture. I can't not do what I'm recommending other women to do. That's a
Yeah.
level of disassociation that I'm not willing to participate in.
Right, right. So important to take care of ourselves. This is such a beautiful conversation. And as we start to wrap up, I want to remind people on how they could find you first, and then I'll pass the mic over to you. And if you want to leave us with, a quote, that would be good, a powerful quote, if you would like, a book recommendation, and then also something that you might be offering, so that way people can find out how to work with you. But let me list out her website. So it's Carol Lourie, CarolLourie.com. Pretty easy, first and last name. And then also in the description, you'll see her Facebook group, so you could join and get right into her community that way. I love when people have Facebook groups. Also, her YouTube channel and her Instagram link is there as well. So, Carol, if you have a quote and then any offerings that you want to share with us, that would be great.
Healing is always possible.
Yes.
That's my quote. No matter
Love
how
it.
old you are, no matter where you are, no matter how down and out you feel, no matter how hopeless you feel, it's always possible. And you start small and then you can grow. And it's very hard to do that yourself. So women come to me and they go, well, I had breast cancer. I'm this high power XYZ business person, or I run my family or whatever. I thought I could manage this. And then I was on Dr. Google all the time and I was trying different stuff. And my response is, if you have a car and you're not a mechanic and it breaks down and somebody hands you a book and says, well, here's the book, read through all the pages and fix your car, are you going to do that? I'm not going to do that. I mean, like, why? What's this? It's this thing with breast cancer. Women think they can do it themselves. It's,
Mm,
you know, knowing where to come in somebody's healing journey is a science and an art, and it's not as easy as you might think.
yeah.
Now, you asked me for a book recommendation. I love this book, Sex, Lies, and Menopause by T.S. Wiley and Dr. Noguchi. She's a genius. It's a wonderful book. It talks about hormones and breast cancer and tamoxifen and aromatase inhibitors and the messaging in the medical world. It does recommend hormones for women with breast cancer, and that is very controversial. So if you've had breast cancer and you're thinking about that, you really, really need to be working with not just a hormone expert, but an integrative breast cancer expert, because if it happened, doing the same thing more than once is a definition of insanity. So if you had a diagnosis of breast cancer, it means that your body has a dysregulation with hormones. And even though you've
Mm.
had medical oncology treatment, that may not and probably has not addressed that dysregulation of what happens when estrogen sits on the breast cell receptor. So I'm not recommending from this book that you go and find somebody to do hormone therapy after breast cancer, but this has a lot of information about how to take care of your health and what is going on behind the scenes of hormonal imbalance and breast cancer.
Wow, powerful.
Oh, and what I'm recommending, what I'm doing is I have an online live group coaching program called Empowered Against Recurrence. And the best way to find out about that is to use the contact me form on carollaurie.com, and say, I'm interested in joining your live group coaching program. And my team will send you an email to tell you all about it.
Amazing. Oh, I love that you have that offer. Thank you, Carol. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been really wonderful to meet you and share all this information with your wonderful audience.
Yes, absolutely. All right, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in. Namaste and have a great day.